Hi, everybody. I'm David Asman. Thanks for joining us tonight. Kicking off, living without a babysitter. The laws and rules of the nanny state are strangling American business and American independence. It goes against our grain to be told by the government what to do and how to lead our lives. But more than that, it just doesn't work. Every country that goes down this road reaches a point where the more laws they have, the more lawless people become. When Maggie Thatcher became prime minister, she hit a chord with the English people by saying that the many taxes they had were actually forcing people to break the law just in order to survive. And now too many rules and regulations in this country are forcing a lot of people to break the rules and laws just to live a normal life. So how do we get back to a country that lives by the rules of common sense instead of by the assumption that only government can tell us how to live our own lives? Well, who better to ask than former governor of Minnesota, Ventura, a man who spent a good deal of his time as governor trying to get rid of laws that folks didn't really want or need. He is also author of a new book called 63 Documents the Government Does Not Want You to Read. And that is fascinating reading in itself. But, Jesse, we brought you here to talk about the laws in this country. I know you're against the nanny state. You worked very hard as governor to be against the nanny state, but it just keeps growing, doesn't it?
Well, the problem I had in Minnesota, I wanted to change it so that, I'll tell you the story. When I first won governor, I walked in the Secretary of State's office and I saw this massive wall of books. And I said, "What's that?" They said, "That's every law in the state of Minnesota." And I went, wow. And ignorance of the law is no excuse. We're supposed to know all that. And so I went back and said, I want to make it so every third year the legislature can only come in and repeal laws rather than doing any new ones. Unfortunately, it only lasted about an hour because my staff came back and said, "Governor," they said, "in order to do that, you have to amend the state constitution." And I thought, wow, that's a 10-year process. I'm not going to be around here that long. So I gave it up right there because I knew I couldn't accomplish it in the time I'd be in office.
Well, do you think it could be done now? I mean, things have changed. Just in the past couple of years, dramatically, things have changed because of the Tea Parties and that whole movement. Do you think now an idea like that, which I think is brilliant, do you think that could pass?
Well, it isn't a question of passing. It's a question of abiding by the Constitution. See, the problem we have today is we're passing laws that defy the Constitution, and nobody's saying, wait a minute, these laws defy the Constitution, you got to overturn them. The problem is you have to change your state or federal constitution to do what I tried to do, and that's a 10-year process to do that, regardless of now or then.
Okay, it's a 10-year process, but, I mean, you could at least, first of all, put that in motion. If it is a 10-year process, get that process begun immediately, but there must be ways that you could tweak the state laws in that direction, no?
Well, I don't know. Like I said, I moved on then because I had far too much stuff to do as an independent governor. You know, when I was an independent governor with the Democrats and Republicans, I was about as welcome as the red-headed stepchild on the day they read the will.
Not too many redheads in the mom and pop category, but talk about how these laws get written in the first place. I mean, because there's, first of all, the one that you reminded me of, the stupid law, which I love, is that in Minnesota there's always a time around this time of year, springtime, when there's still a little bit of thin ice, and some idiot on a bluff goes in a snowmobile, goes onto the ice, falls through it, dies, and they want to create a law to try to prevent. You can't stop stupid people from doing stupid things by law, right?
Well, and that's part of, that was a quote I did, it's part of freedom. Part of freedom is having the freedom also, unfortunately, to be stupid.
Yeah.
That goes along with it. You know, that's the double-edged sword. And it seems that every time someone does something stupid, right away they have to pass a law, and as we know, laws cost money. That's right. Every law that's passed, you have to, I don't have the ability to say, well, this is dumb, I'm not going to do it. I can't do that. Yeah. And so they cost money, and when you end up with shelves and shelves of laws, then you wonder why budgets are the way they are.
But it starts with, I don't want to say a good idea, because if you think it through, it's not a good idea, but it starts with a good intention. The road to hell was paved with good intention. It starts with a good intention. Okay, we want to stop people from dying, or let me put it in modern terms. We have this new financial consumer protection law. We saw all these people make terrible choices in buying these subprime houses and loans that they couldn't afford, and eventually it creates a huge crisis that is involved in this bailout and everything. I mean, now we have this new agency. I understand, but now we have this new agency. We have this whole new agency, a financial consumer protection agency, which is run by this very nice woman, Elizabeth Warren, but it's a monster. It's this bureaucratic monster. That's how these things get started, right?
Sure. But again, let's remember, what happened on Wall Street was a planned event. They knew exactly what they were doing there. And you know, so I blame them. You know, around the country right now, you're seeing everybody blame the unions, blame this, blame that. Why is nobody from Wall Street going to prison?
All right. Well, hey, Jesse, look, I agree with you that there's blame to go around, but the point is, beyond the blame game, how do we get rid of this stuff? I mean, we're stuck now with a consumer protection agency. It's going to cost billions of dollars over time. It's going to employ thousands of bureaucrats, and it's going to get in the way, as bureaucrats always do, of people doing business.
Well, the way I believe we can take our country back and we can have a bloodless revolution, naturally, is for everyone to stop voting for Democrats and Republicans. After all, they're the cause of this. They're not the solution, they're the problem. They've been in charge all these years, and look at what a mess we're in. And I'm an equal opportunity despiser. I despise Democrats the same as I do Republicans.
But the fact is that
like Ralph Nader said, right, we're a two-party dictatorship.
But you know, Jesse, I understand you spend about half your. You once told me you spent about half your time in Mexico. I even heard, by the way, is it true that you're thinking of becoming a Mexican citizen?
Yeah, but I'm not giving up my U.S. citizenship.
Okay, so you have dual citizenship.
No.
Because I know Mexico, I do know Mexico pretty well. I didn't live there as you did, but I spent 12 years covering it for the Journal. So, and that, talk about a country that is festooned with laws from one end of the border. Their Constitution, by the way, was started in the 1920s. It's a lot younger than ours, but they already have over 1,000 amendments to their Constitution. In other words, they have so many laws there that nobody adheres to any single one of them.
Well, pretty much. I never see any problem with government. That's why I'm down there. Government leaves me alone. But let me explain something. They actually do a lot of stuff better than we do. It's embarrassing.
Like, for example?
First of all, their president serves 1 6-year term. Right. I wish we would switch to that. Another thing, our property taxes, we penalize good behavior and reward bad. Case in point, if you buy a home and fix it up, how are you rewarded? You pay more. Well, you know how it works in Mexico? Your property taxes are due in March. If you pay them in January...
Jesse, look...
Wait, let me finish.
Okay, quickly.
If you pay them in January, they knock off 20%. Right. If you pay them in February, they knock off 10%.
But Jesse,
March is normal.
Okay.
Better than us.
I get you, Jesse. But my point is that there is a sense of lawlessness because they have so many laws, and because the people don't give a damn about the laws because they don't adhere to them.
There's no one there to enforce them.
Oh, come on, Jesse. There certainly is,
I don't see,
and they
where
are mostly
I live, I don't
corrupt.
see it.
Maybe not where you live. You live in
there?
Baja, California, but if you live in Mexico City, if you live in Monterrey, if you live in San Miguel de Allende, one of the big places down there, you're going to have to deal with a lot of corrupt officials who at any moment could accuse you of something, and the only way you can get out of it is by paying a little more detail, a little bribe.
Gee, it sounds like the United States today.
Well, in the United States, they don't call them bribes. They call them tax assessments or extra charge for this or extra charge. My point is that to a certain extent,
violate our Constitution.
Hold on. Jesse, there is a difference. We do have a sense of rule of law here, and I admit it is being squashed over the past few years, but we do have a rule of law here that they do not have in Mexico.
And that's why I like being down there, more freedom.
Well, freedom if you can pay for it. If you can't pay for it, you can end up in a lot of trouble.
Nobody bothers me.
Well, I wouldn't if I was down there either. Jesse, stay with us. We want to bring in a panel to talk about what we're talking about. Conservative commentator Monica Crowley. Hold on a second. We'll be able to talk more, Jesse, in just a second. Fox News radio host Alan Combs and Fox News contributor Dr. Keith Abloh. Keith, first to you, because Jesse makes some great points. I know Mexico very well. It is true. You can, if you want to have a fire on the beach, you just light a fire on the beach. You know, and if some cop comes around, you pay him a little bribe, and that's the end of it. But the downside of that, Keith, is the fact that you have a certain sense of lawlessness, and you don't have the ability to take that cop if he reneges on his promise and actually comes and arrests you, throws you in jail. You're still stuck. You don't have that ability to go to the courts to get your due.
Neither do we. I think I can get Jesse to agree with me on this. I'm a fan, by the way, but here I think we could agree on this. The least structure you want is the structure of a Ferrari automobile. That's what we're looking for in government. We want just enough to contain the explosive nature of man, just enough to channel it onto the track and get great acceleration without causing a lack of performance. We have too much here. There's probably not enough there, because without it, you have people taking matters into their own hands and deciding, well, I'll be the structure in the absence of it. So that's my guideline. How do we stay on track but let people perform to their maximum possibility?
And Monica, you got 30,000 people killed in the drug war down there. I know there are reasons, again, there's plenty of places to blame for that drug war, but the bottom line is you do have a lawlessness there that you don't have here.
Well, that's true. I mean, look, the Founding Fathers' original philosophy was the government that governs best is the government that governs least.
Yes.
Meaning that the central government, the federal government, should have limited enumerated powers to expand freedom, to give individuals as much individual freedom as possible, right? That's what this country was founded on. Now we have a situation where lawmakers always feel that they need to justify their existence, and they do that by making laws, lawmaking, right? And so what you end up with is some of the most absurd things on the books, because they do take the exception, whether it's the guy on the snowblower and he hurts himself and that becomes a law. They take the exception, they turn it into the rule, and they apply it to everybody.
The question is, where do you want the laws to be? We may agree that I don't want the government telling me that I can't have a Happy Meal. You know, I think I don't want the government involved in telling me where they shouldn't tell McDonald's what they can put in a box for, depending on the number of calories. But do we need laws telling women about their reproductive rights? Do we need laws telling consenting adults they can't pay for sex? Do we? I mean, what laws do you want to stop?
There's always, because you can say one person can say we need a law protecting women's rights, another say we need to protect the baby's rights. So there's always you're always going to have conflict, but you have to have ways to resolve that conflict within the law, and you don't always have that in Mexico. You don't always have it here either, Jesse, and that's the point of your book, is 63 documents. You find a lot of things in this book that shows you that there are a lot of cases where right here we don't have that kind of rule of law.
Well, absolutely. This book is terrifying. Let me add another one. Why do they stick fluoride in our water when fluoride is the main ingredient of Prozac?
Well, I'm not sure fluoride's the main ingredient of Prozac.
Oh, yes, it is.
But yes, it is. No, I don't think so. But it can be a carcinogen, and I'm not sure that fluoridated water makes sense in general.
I read something different than you then, because let's see, it was the Nazis that first put Prozac in the water, or I should say fluoride. Fluoride is 90% of Prozac.
All right. Well, the point is, Monica Crowley, that the more that the government can get away with, the worse it is for individuals. I mean, that's the point of Jesse's book, and you can see exactly what they've gotten away with in the past. Some of it is pretty frightening stuff.
And we're seeing that to great extent today under this administration, with spreading the tentacles of government power into every nook and cranny of your life, from your health care and your most private
something that is killing Alan Combs.
Well, they haven't done that. They keep saying it's a government takeover of health care, which is not true. It's not a government takeover. If it were a public option, or if it were a single payer.
By the way, Jesse, do you agree with that? Do you think that Obamacare is a government takeover or not?
Who, me?
Yeah.
The most thing I'd like to say is all our congressmen and senators that stand up and say no to Obamacare, why don't those hypocrites get rid of their government-run health care?
That's right.
Why don't they deny? Why don't they say, look, I'm going to set an example.
Why are you agreeing,
I'm giving up
because
my government-run health
If you hate the government, but these people work for the government and get all the largesse that the government gives them.
You think every individual, because of Obamacare, will get what the people in government now have?
By the way, I reject the term Obamacare. I reject that term.
Do you think that everybody will get under the Obama plan, everybody will get what the folks in Congress now have?
No, that's not what I'm saying. But
I'm asking, do you think that?
No, but 47 million people will get covered or are not now covered.
Jesse Ventura's book is called 63 Documents the Government Does Not Want You to Read, but you can read it in this book. Jesse, thank you very much. We'll hear more from the panel coming up. And also on deck, attention deficit disorder. Republicans